So hey people, Max Mike here. Now, I know you follow the news and the scream sheets, so by now I know you've heard about the assassination of those ESA officials during their big conference in Zurich, right? Yeah, the news says it's high rider extremist, lunar separatists pushing back on ESA expansion on the moon. But of course, that's not really what's going on here. Never is. Now, I've got friends in, let's say, high places, and they've told me the truth of the matter. See, a few weeks ago, a Militech espionage team infiltrated an Arasaka base in the Mare Nubium. That's the Sea of Clouds. They were there because of unusual seismic activity at the base. It's an indicator that Arasaka's moving around a lot of regolith construction. For you dirt boys and dirt girls in the audience, let me clarify. Regolith's just a fancy name for moon rocks. So what do they find, you ask? Only a partially completed and totally unauthorized mass driver. That's a big rock thrower. It's really good for getting cargo materials back down to Earth from the moon. And also, as we learned in the last war, it's a great way to drop rocks on cities. So you might not know this, but new mass drivers are strictly regulated by international treaty, and they're prohibited under ESA lunar use contracts. The ESA has the ultimate high ground advantage in any Earth conflict with their own Tycho and Copernicus mass drivers. And they really don't want anyone else having that same advantage, especially Arasaka. So, my friends in the know tell me that Militech seems to have fed that information about Arasaka's secret mass driver to the ESA committee in advance of Arasaka's upcoming lunar contract renegotiations. And to keep their contracts, Arasaka has taken the drastic action to eliminate anyone in the ESA who might have seen this data on their mass driver. But hey, this was sloppy by Arasaka's standards. In fact, so sloppy, I'd be really surprised if this had come from the top. I'm guessing some middle manager somewhere was just trying to cover their ass.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. A dead city livens up the news today. Following the catastrophic use of biological weapons in Busan during the Militech-Arasaka conflict of the early 2020s, essentially all forms of life have been wiped clean from the megacity. Millions of people, animals, and plants were eradicated in a matter of minutes, and a similar fate awaits any to this day who strays too close to the southern edge of the Korean peninsula and the waters surrounding it. Though not all in the city lie still, automated systems powered by local tidal energy continue to operate unsupervised. Netwatch has warned that without proper maintenance, any Busan-based AI could, in time, pose a considerable threat. Arasaka has washed their hands of the issue, placing full blame for the ecological and subsequent technical crisis with Militech, who dropped the bombs. NUSA President Rosalind Myers has declined to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Pedanian government is once again in the midst of a campaign to prevent illegal excavations and looting in the city of Venice. 4 looters and 7 carabinieri were killed in the most recent altercation. This city, submerged under the Adriatic Sea, still hides many centuries-old and priceless works of art. High demand from collectors has spurred on the continued looting. Official figures estimate the net worth of Venetian sculptures and jewelry sold illegally on the black market would be equivalent to 1/3 of the Pedanian economy's GDP. Most stolen works eventually find their way to collectors in private orbital stations, making reclamation a difficult process. Further west, Switzerland has officially become the first nation committed to a fully automated military by 2080. Already, 90% of the Swiss armed forces consist of Lobos, drones, and automated vehicles. The Officer Corps makes up the remaining 10%. As the Swiss government phases out its current Officer Corps, they will begin implementation of the CVS Pacem automated command system. As stated in the government's official press release, Switzerland can at last achieve its goal of true neutrality. CVS Pacem will secure our borders but will never position Switzerland as the aggressor. And that's the world's latest. Thanks for joining us. Until next time. 1919 was a year of great change in our history. The onset of American prohibition, the end of World War I. and the birth of Saburo Arasaka. From an early age, Saburo was heavily involved in the business his father had founded. As a young man, he quickly demonstrated the work ethic and natural talent, becoming of an exceptional manager. That is, until his promising career was abruptly interrupted by war upon his doorstep. Saburo Arasaka enlisted as a pilot in the Nippon Kaigun, the Japanese Imperial Navy. By the age of 23, he had already achieved the rank of lieutenant. With 20 confirmed aerial victories, he forever will be honored as one of the Imperial Army's most accomplished fighter pilots. But in 1942, during a routine mission, his plane was severely damaged. Yet, overcoming both grievous injury and a malfunctioning aircraft, Saburo managed to return to base. The injury sustained by Saburo Arasaka in 1942 ultimately proved serious enough to disqualify him from further combat missions. He could now only watch as the empire he defended began to suffer more and more losses, until their eventual and unconditional surrender in 1945. According to family accounts, Saburo, gripped by despair and shame, had resolved to commit seppuku, but then changed his mind at the very last moment. Why? No one knows. From the day he nearly took his own life, Saburo Arasaka has refused to speak about his wartime experience with anyone. He devoted his complete attention to one thing alone: his work. Following the death of his father Sasai Arasaka in 1960, Saburo assumed control of the family business. Under his direction, their humble company began on its path to becoming a world-leading corporate giant. It was in 1990 when Arasaka Corp first emerged on the Global 500 list. Then in 1996, after the collapse of the United States, it rose to number 2 in the rankings. At the most trying time in our history, Saburo Arasaka provided thousands of Americans with reliable work and helped us regain a sense of our former prosperity. For that, we will always owe him a debt of gratitude. Arigatou gozaimasu, Saburo-san.
Good evening, Night City! Boy, do I have a treat for you! Make that 3 treats! On the show, we have the girls from... wait, how do you say it? Ass cracks? Us cracks?
Ziki, you can say it however you want. Meow. He's pretty cute in person, isn't he?
It's a relief to see you girls in such high spirits. I mean, after someone destroyed your equipment truck, it must have been terrifying.
You are joking? It was wild. This is why we love Night City. It is so crazy. Exactly. Tokyo is so boring.
And if a man set fire to your limo right now, what would you say to him?
Invite us with you next time. Pow boom!
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Us cracks! Don't miss their upcoming concert. You've never seen anything like it.
So listen up, people. I've got a story to tell you. I heard something recently from a nomad friend of mine. She was telling me about some strange stuff happening out in the Badlands of the East. She said she ran across another nomad patrol. 5 people, all mauled to death by a wild animal. But the thing is, folks, there haven't been mountain lions out there in almost a century, wolves in even longer. So what could it be? Well, I'm reminded of a story. Story told me by an old merc I used to know. He once took a job that had him fly over to Romania, looking for some corpo's missing brother. Search took him to an old village, and they decided to camp for the night before searching the woods in the morning. That night, they could hear barking, howls in the distance. Even though they knew it had to be wild dogs, the team could barely get any sleep that night. Then, just before dawn, they were attacked by animals. But they weren't dogs. They were werewolves. No, listeners, I haven't lost it. I mean it. They were werewolves. But not the ones of legend and not the ones in old Hollywood flat screen flicks. These bad doggies came out of a lab. See, it turns out that IBM had decided to back some rather unsavory sorts in an attempted coup of the government and offer these gene freaks as part of the deal. Of course, it didn't work. The coup was crushed a few months later, and EBM isn't around anymore either. The question remains, where did EBM get their knockoff Wolfmen? They never had much of a gene hacking division, so they must have come from some other corp. The obvious answer, of course, is Biotechnica, who just happened to own most of the land south of Night City, all the way down to the border. So what do you think, listeners? Is Biotechnica releasing experimental monsters into Badland? Maybe those protein farms down there are cover. Something broke out of a lab with a taste for human blood. It's always good advice to watch your back. But this time you might want to pack a few silver bullets next time you leave town. Just saying.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan. We begin now with your latest local news. The 54th anniversary of the AHQ disaster is fast approaching. In 2023, Night City was shaken to its core by the detonation of a tactical nuclear bomb in Arasaka's NC headquarters. 12,000 were killed instantly by the blast, and thousands more later succumbed to acute radiation sickness. This tragic incident, which some ultimately attribute to Arasaka's wanton imperialist tendencies, has forever left a mark on our city's history. And now, an important message for Watson residents. The homelessness problem plaguing the district's sewer system will be addressed as fumigation of the tunnels begins tomorrow. Due to the use of potent neurotoxins, Watson residents are urged to stay clear of storm drains and sewer entrances to minimize risk of injury and death. Next, is it the end of eastbound traffic jams on the I-9? Long-awaited repairs to Ring Road East may begin as early as next month. Estimates put investment into this major artery at close to €20 million, with priority being placed on efficiency and anti-nomad barriers. And that is it for your latest local news. After the break, we have a look at our world report. Hello, Night City. I'm Jillian Jordan with N54 News, and this is your local latest. The NCPD has urged caution when using data terms. A routine inspection has shown many have been corrupted with malware. Police experts have confirmed the identified virus can lead to cyberware failure and, in extreme cases, even death. In response to increased gang activity, the mayor's office has raised the public threat level to red. Residents of Arroyo and Watson are advised not to leave their homes after dark and always ensure easy access to protective firearms. Schools and hospitals have been closed until further notice. What's next for Pacifica? The district, formerly designed as an oasis of luxury, has become a den for violent gangs and drug addicts. Kang Tao recently expressed interest in the purchase of Pacifica property with the aim of constructing a new server and logistics center. The city government has openly considered selling the land for a single $1 in a symbolic gesture, provided that Kang Tao demonstrates commitment to eradicating the district's criminal presence. Today's final story is an unwelcome one for pet owners. The canine ownership tax will increase to €1,000 per dog per month. Similarly, the fine for possessing an undocumented animal will increase to €40,000. Thank you for tuning in to the N54 local news. Have a pleasant day.
Good morning, Night City! Is it a mirage? A hologram? No, my friends, it's clear, open skies. But don't take it from me. Get out there and enjoy the sun.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, reports of hardship have emerged from Alaska. According to the Incorporated Press, corn harvests have dropped by 80% from last year's yields, the result of catastrophically heavy rains and floods plaguing the region. Local authorities are under obligation to provide nearly 80 million bushels of their crop to Biotechnica, the engineers behind the frost corn hybrid species. The city of Juneau now faces a difficult choice of whether to honor the agreement, causing severe shortages in Alaska, or break the contract and forego next year's seed corn delivery from Biotechnica. Whether you believe Alaskans deserve humanitarian aid or perhaps a lesson in self-reliance, cast your vote at the address below. Freak accident or targeted attack. Nanobees terrorize the residents of Milan. Eyewitness accounts tell us 7 million of the Fengwang nanobots suddenly ceased their pollination functions and buzzed straight for the Lombardy capital, though the cause remains unknown. The nanobees infested several buildings and moving vehicles, causing numerous reported accidents. The mayor of Milan, Lorenzo Ricci, announced the formation of an investigative committee to determine the cause behind the bizarre phenomenon. Ever dreamed of being a head of state? Now may be your chance. Luxury real estate firm No Limits at All has announced another 15 artificial islands, available for sale now. Each island spans at least 3 square miles and possesses a foundation built to withstand an 8 on the Richter scale. Because they are located in international waters, island owners fall under no nation's jurisdiction and are free to establish and enforce local law and custom. For more information on your future slice of paradise, visit the address below. In the meantime, this lovely West Coast weather isn't a bad substitute. Thanks for tuning in, Night City.
NC, back with you so soon? How's your afternoon? Where is the division between man and machine? To find the answer, check out the latest book from Richard Sanchez titled Chromo Sapiens. In a nutshell, according to Sanchez, humankind can never be fully automated because of, quote, all our damn brain chemistry. I wonder if this bestseller has made the Maelstrom Book Club's reading list.
So people, listen up. I've got a story to share with you. Recently, I've been hearing about this monk that's been walking around Night City streets, healing the sick, but only those he deems worthy. Some of my listeners seem convinced that it's none other than Raish Bartmoss. Raish Bartmoss. Yeah, you know, the guy, the chief architect of the net, and later its badass destroyer. The rumor has always been he got taken out by a killsat in the early days of the Fourth Corporate, but no one ever took responsibility for that strike. Is it possible Bartmoss set his creations wild and faked his own death? Did he bring down the net he created because it had turned into another tool the corporations could use to track us and to ultimately completely subjugate us? Think about it. Okay, people, listen up. This one comes to me from a listener who raises a great question. And he suggests an answer. How does the Arasaka family live so long? What about the Lucchese's, or half a dozen other high-profile corpo families that are pushing 200 years at this point? His answer? The vampires. The world is ruled by vampires. Well, folks, I can't say I haven't thought about it that way, but let's consider the evidence. There's the obvious. They seem to live forever and they look good doing it. Have you seen the documentary recently about Hanako Arasaka? She doesn't look a day over 40, but she's currently pushing her 8th decade. They drink blood. Yeah, checks out. They drain this city for sure. They sleep in coffins. Well, I do happen to know Saburo Arasaka spent the better part of this century in a medical tank to keep him alive. What do the medtechs call it? Ah, the sarcophagus. Yeah, it's more of a mummy thing, but close enough. They can only be killed with a wooden stake. And I'm not sure about this one. But maybe someone should test this out and let me know.
We return to this week's biggest story, the murder of Arasaka Corporation CEO Saburo Arasaka. The longtime head of the Japanese megacorporation was reported slain on the premises of the Konpeki Plaza corporate hotel while attending a family gathering. Saburo Arasaka's son, Yorinobu Arasaka, has cast blame for his father's murder on the company's rivals, although he has not yet provided evidence supporting this claim. According to market analysts, the CEO's death may have been a desperate attempt to divert attention away from the company's ongoing internal issues. After the break, we ask experts how they see Arasaka rebounding from the crisis. Over the past several weeks, tensions between Arasaka Corp and Militech escalated to troubling levels. Many pundits and analysts warned of a possible outbreak of armed conflict. The exacerbation of tensions was heightened when Yorinobu Arasaka assumed leadership following his father's death and accused Militech of his murder. However, in an unexpected shift, the return of Saburo Arasaka appears to have diffused the situation between the rival megacorporations.
継続は力なり。荒坂社の基本理念です。息子の頼信はこの言葉を忘れ、焦って変化を求めすぎました。私が敵味方両者に説き続けてきた教訓。完璧なものを変える必要はない。これが真理なのです。以上となります。
Saburo Arasaka and NUS President Rosalind Myers have agreed to meet in person to lay the groundwork for a lasting peace. A first step of goodwill was taken today as the Arasaka CEO withdrew from Night City 15 armored vehicles from the company's Akaashi series. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story. Now for local news. The NCPD has expanded its arsenal to include Militech's Centaur-class exosuits. The force has ordered 20 of the Centaur units to be used in preventative patrols and MaxTech forces. A ceremonial signing of the partnership took place at City Hall. Police Commissioner Coleridge and Militech Government Relations Executive Meredith Stout were in attendance.
Officers in the NCPD put their lives on the line for us every day. They defend all Night citizens against gang violence, nomad outlaws, and cyber-psycho attacks. Thanks to Militech's Centaur-class exosuits, they can keep themselves safe, and all the rest of us even safer.
Once again, Militech has proven its vital role in the reconstruction of America. After the break, what quality is most important when hiring a personal bodyguard for your child? Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan. The world remains gripped by the revelation that Saburo Arasaka has returned from the dead in the body of his son, Yorinobu Arasaka. A letter of protest regarding the apparent resurrection has been signed by religious leaders, human rights groups, and Virtue 100 company CEOs.
This is an abomination born of unchecked vanity, technocratic arrogance, complete moral collapse.
Our position is clear. Saburo Arasaka's seizure of power is in violation of international law. International arbitration is absolutely necessary to...
Night City residents are also making their voices heard. A protest outside of Arasaka's Night City headquarters has extended to its second day.
Do we really want to live in a world where the rich and powerful can become immortal? Where they can continue to take from the poor, not only their livelihoods, but even their breaths?
But Saburo Arasaka has issued his response in similarly strong terms. There will be no appeasement.
荒坂社内部の出来事に関して外部の方々にとやかく言われる筋合いはありません。生を受けることに許可が必要ない以上、蘇ることも同様であると考えるべきです。私が息子を殺めたなどという主張は事実無根。法的根拠もありません。合意の上での身体の贈与は一種の寄付に分類することができ、殺人には到底値しません。殺人の条件は生物学的な死です。見ての通り、この体は生きています。
Will the world accept Saburo Arasaka's argument and bend to his will? I'll ask our experts after the break.
Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today we tackle a homegrown giant in defense. You guessed it, Militech. At first glance, Militech's portfolio looks gold-plated. 500,000 employees worldwide, profits in the hundreds of billions, capitalization on the order of some 2 trillion. But do we accept these jaw-dropping numbers as the product of healthy competition? Or being in bed with the authoritarian NUSA government? The line between Militech and the feds has always been fluid. CEO Donald Lundy previously headed the Pentagon. Elizabeth Kress, former president of the company for the greater part of a decade, later became president of the NUSA. And who replaced Kress in the Oval Office? Rosalind Myers, Surprise, surprise, Militech's former CEO. Responsible for over 60% of contracts, the NUSA is far and away their largest customer. Though, in truth, these sales amount to no more than hidden government subsidies. This should raise a huge red flag for any investor with half a brain. Militech is suckling at the giant teat that is the capital. But should Washington ever run dry, kablamo! Want my recommendation? Sell, sell, and sell some more. And if you're unsure where to shove all that cash on short notice, you can't go wrong with the Arasaka Money Machine. Stay steady and make eddies, my friends. Until next time, NC.
And now, loyal listeners, a special bulletin. Saburo Arasaka, the ancient patriarch of the Arasaka Corporation, has died. Just kidding, folks. You're too smart for that. You and I both know he's not really dead. Saburo Arasaka has spent nearly 100 years now on a quest for eternal life. He's guarded around the clock by a private army and lived for the better part of the century in a med tank designed to regenerate organic tissue. Guys like that, they don't just die. They certainly don't just get murdered by rivals. What would Saburo even be doing in Night City? No, folks, this is a smokescreen for something. And it wouldn't be the first time. If you're old enough to remember the Fourth Corporate War, there was a widespread report that Saburo had been killed by the Japanese SDF in a bid to end the war. Of course, it turned out not to be true, and the war dragged on for another year. No, you can take this one to the bank. It's only a matter of time before Saburo's going to show up on TV, tell us all he's back as CEO and ready to take the Arasaka Corporation into the next century. Yo, people. So, I don't know if you saw the news, but there's a Klimt exhibit that's opening at the California Museum of Art, San Francisco, in a few weeks. I like Klimt. I was planning on going myself, but I figure there's no point. I mean, after all, it's nothing but high-quality forgeries. What? You mean you think they keep any art on Earth? No, from Picasso to Da Vinci, Pickman to Mapplethorpe. I've been told they've been taken to a secure vault on Luna. Why? Well, that's unclear. Reportedly, it's because after the Fourth Corporate War nearly brought an end to civilization, some of the richest people on Earth got together and made an insurance policy of sorts. Keep the cultural heritage of the Earth in a secure place, out of harm's way in case of another, more serious war. And on the face of it, that's not really bad. But I've heard a darker rumor. I'll fill you in, but first, let me tell you a little story. Long time ago, I knew a guy who owned a small restaurant. Now, things were good for a while, but times change, tastes change, rent goes up, way up. So he decides to cash in on his insurance policy by setting the place on fire. Now, don't worry, I'm not giving away any secrets here. I mean, he was caught, convicted, served his time in a braindance cube, and now he walks the streets a free man. But you know how they caught him? Before he burned down his diner, he took out all the expensive kitchen equipment and sold it. Dead giveaway. So think about this. Someone up on Luna is taking all the stuff on Earth they think has value. Maybe they're not just hoarding it. Maybe they're planning something else. Think about it, folks. And the next time you see a rocket launched from the spaceport, ask yourself this. What if that's the last shipment?
Hey, I'm Josh Kevorkian, and as always, your business is my business. We'll kick off the day with a broad scan of the market. Kiroshi climbs 2, Quadra dips by 1, New American Auto Works revs up by 1.5. But the day's big head turner? Orbital Air rocketing by 10 points. Don't touch that volume. You heard right. 10 points. But why? How? Coming off a disappointing year, no new announcements, the release of longtime CEO Leslie Wawuda, who could justify even an any of investment into the stagnant aerospace giant? And yet, don't forget, folks, many huge accounts out there are managed by AIs. You blink an eye and they've already bought and sold shares twice over in billion-euro-dollar deals. The problem is we don't always know what drives their decisions. And frankly, the owners of the funds they manage couldn't care less, so long as they see those profits ticking up. But my dear viewers, I say we dig deeper. How could orbital air grow so drastically, so quickly? My friends, I see only one logical explanation. Those AIs expect a big boost in demand for orbital flights in the very near future. But why? World war? Environmental catastrophe? Perhaps the rise of the machines? That we may never know. Whatever conclusion the AIs have deduced from their data crunch, they seem intent on keeping it to themselves. Regardless of our fates, the time to buy is now. After all, we may need the windfall to buy our tickets to the moon once the world finally goes to hell. Hello, Night City. As always, your business is my business. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into Petrochem Better Life. How's the Chew-2 super producer doing these days? In a word, tanking. 2076 was a painful year for Petrochem, thanks to severe droughts. Soybean and corn, the fuel's primary components, suffered record low yields. And the salt in the wound? The governments of Brazil and Colombia, where Petrochem has its largest plantations, have planned to seize crop harvests in an effort to quell surging famine and unrest. Although Petrochem's expert team of lobbyists have prevented the seizures so far, company stock still plummeted as much as 11% last year. But before you kick him out of the window, Petrochem CEO Lars Mohammed announced last week the planned acquisition of 1 million acres of arable land in the USSR, specifically in its Kazakh, Turkmen, and Dagestani territories. Such a weighty investment likely ensures the company will never again suffer from supply shortages that could slow the flow of Chew-2. Should Mohammed's gamble pay dividends, we can expect a mighty resurgence of investor confidence and skyrocketing stock prices. In other words, get out there and buy, buy, buy. And that's today's juiciest take. Until next time, Night City. Hey, Night City! Today, as always, your business is my business. I've got big news for all you hungry investors. Yorinobu Arasaka is convening an emergency meeting of the Arasaka Supervisory Board in Night City. Top execs from Tokyo headquarters, branch directors from Paris, Shanghai, Kinshasa, a great big meeting of the minds. Now, the official press release didn't give a reason for the meeting, but analysts are pointing the finger at a bloodbath of internal politics. The young Arasaka likely plans to consolidate control, with some of the core management team he inherited from Saburo getting kicked to the curb. Or could they need a battle plan, with times getting tense between Arasaka and the Militech NUSA alliance? It's no secret Yorinobu prefers sticks to carrots, but I wouldn't be shocked if the board is singing to a different tune. Want my recommendation? I think you know what I'm gonna say. Buy! Anybody with a wallet and half a brain already has Arasaka in their portfolio. But if you don't, time to hop on the Arasaka money-making machine. That's it for today, Night City. And remember, you've got what it takes to earn those eddies. Good evening, Night City. We begin tonight with a look at the stock market, as always. Following another attack on Arasaka's Night City HQ, the Japanese Goliath has plummeted by 17%. And we should expect that slide to continue, say analysts. According to a statement from the NCPD, the attack was carried out by a group of nomads who pierced the tower via a maglev railway tunnel. Panic has saturated the market. This latest slump has led to losses in excess of 500 billion euro dollars. Arasaka CEO Yorinobu Arasaka has since evacuated his Night City office for Tokyo. In light of these events, I have only one recommendation, my friends. Sell. Sell now. while you still can.
So, people, we're going to be talking some good news tonight. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite places, the Pacific Northwest. Since Biotechnica took over there way back during the time of the Red, they've been making a forest grow. The spotted owls are nesting again, and I even heard that Sasquatch is back. And if any of you can get me an interview, I'd really like that. But it's not all paradise, folks. There's something else going on. Ever hear of Armillaria solidipes? Probably not. But it used to be the largest living organism in the world, a single fungal growth that stretched beneath miles of the Oregonian wilderness. And that was just a century ago. Unfortunately, bioplagues, acid rain, and pollution ended that, and the fungus was declared all but dead by the middle of the century. Well, good news for mushroom fanatics everywhere. It's back and better than ever. Biotechnica has made the return of this organism a top priority for their ecological restoration project in the Northwest, and they've got the patent filings to prove it. I checked with the NUSA and EEC patent offices, and Biotechnica's got patents for solidipes for the purposes of soil improvement. Well, that checks out. And biodiversity measurement. Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, but what's this one? Bioinformatic neural simulation. Well, that sounds interesting. I decided this was worth looking into, so I got a friend of mine to get me some satellite images of the area of that fungal restoration. And smack dab in the middle of it is a Biotechnica black lab. That's not that strange, except that the place is linked up in a big way. Transmission towers, sat dishes, what looks like even a hardline data fortress. Why all the comms? Well, I think it's because they're out there building an AI made of mushrooms. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but why not? It's been known for a century that microreasonal networks are capable of processing data, similar to our data digital networks. And a construction like this would let Biotechnica fly to the net watch restrictions on AIs, because no one wants to end up like EBM. But what I still don't know, listeners, is what that AI would be for. Cryptoanalysis? Net weapon? Gen X simulation? So, if any of you are planning to take a trip up north, do me a favor and flip over a few logs and let me know what you find. I'll be interested.
My name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. We have a breaking development for today's international news segment, or should I say, interplanetary. In a daring orbital heist, millions of Eurodollars worth of goods were stolen from Galileo. The thieves docked with the station during a solar storm, which temporarily blinded radar systems, then breached the hull of an orbital air laboratory. The space pirates, as some have dubbed them, made away with several experimental prototypes. Their current heading is unknown, but the ESA has offered a generous reward for any assistance in apprehending the suspects. Back on Earth, a story of optimism emerges from Detroit. The Motor City, formerly infamous for a century of economic decline and squalor, has at last reached its new golden age. As good fortune would have it, the city's numerous landfills, abandoned buildings, and industrial zones are rich in rare resources, now highly valued in today's economy. Thousands of migrants have caught junk fever and set their sights on the city in the search of electronics manufactured around the turn of the century. Undeterred by hazardous conditions and gang violence, these pioneers truly demonstrate the beauty of the American entrepreneurial spirit. Today's closing story. Singhad Studios has announced a new way we, as a society, can care for our elderly. Rather than place our infirm elders in an expensive care center on the other side of town, we will soon be able to connect them to the Silver Days system. Silver Days is an advanced feeder unit adapted to the needs of our eldest relatives. The all-inclusive system consists of a catheter, aspirator, IV drip, nutrition tube, and most importantly, a next-gen brain dance wreath. Your loved ones will be able to forget the worries of today and return to the simpler times of their youth, all reconstructed from your own personal family archives. Don't waste another minute. Pre-order Silver Days now to receive a 10% discount. And I wish you all a bright and shiny day. Thanks for tuning in to WNS News.
No jokes today, Night City. Not when it means keeping you good people safe. Biotechnica's Institute of Meteorology has issued a severe sandstorm warning. Authorities have urged residents to stay at home or another well-sheltered location. No resources, they say, have been set aside for search and rescue efforts. Welcome to paradise, folks.
Hello and welcome to WNS News. I'm Arif Iqbal. Today we have several important public service announcements. In Arroyo, a terrorist group dubbing itself a trade union has been eradicated. These self-proclaimed representatives of Night City's working class attempted to organize a strike, which could have led to financial losses in the millions. Remember, if you come across these so-called union representatives, immediately contact the NCPD or the appropriate corporate security forces. More and more patients have been filing into hospitals throughout Night City with injuries caused by malfunctions in illegally purchased cyberware. Unauthenticated implants have caused several fatal short circuits already. The NCPD urges all cyberware users to buy only from licensed manufacturers. It's worth the investment. Numerous nomad caravans have appeared near city limits in North Oak and Charter Hill. Some reports suggest some of the violent vagrants may have entered Night City despite the NCPD's best efforts. If you spot a nomad, remember that you have the right to self-defense. With such dangerous criminals, warning shots alone are not considered an effective deterrent. Now, today's final story. An N-Cart station is stunned by a bloody massacre. The unidentified assailant opened fire on passengers waiting for the train on Platform 2 at Med Center. 10 people are confirmed dead and 16 injured. We advise Night citizens to thoroughly consider all transport options to find the safest solution. Thanks for tuning in to WNS News. Stay safe out there, Night City.
Newsflash, people. You've heard about this relic that Arasaka's teasing to the rich and famous? It's all over the scream sheets. Copy your personality engram into a chip, and your loved ones don't have to say goodbye when you finally die. Carry your dear sweet grandma around on the chip, ask her for advice, or pick me up whenever you need it. Eternal life of a sort. Of course, this is only on offer to the richest and most powerful people. Immortality isn't for squeebs like you and I, the common man. But is there more to it than that? We know that Arasaka's been working on mind emulation technology for half a century now. Most notably with the infamous Soul Killer. You've probably heard of it. It's a net weapon capable of copying your mind to a secure server and leaving your body an empty vessel. And what do they do with the copies? They interrogate them. There's some experimentation, a little torture, you know, the good stuff. So you, a billionaire executive, decide to get yourself copied, so your precious offspring never have to be without your sage wisdom. Or so you can give your annual speech at the company Christmas party. I mean, what would the world do without you? And Arasaka gladly makes a copy of your brain, puts it on a chip, and hands it over. But not before making a copy for themselves. And that copy goes straight to digital interrogations, where they pull your psyche apart bit by bit until they've squeezed every last memory out of you. Every compromising situation, every crime, every heartache, your secret fears and desires. And now you belong to them. Literally. Yeah, someone in Arasaka's marketing division should get a raise for this one. They've taken the most feared weapon in Arasaka's arsenal and turned it into a luxury consumer item. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. And remember, operators are standing by.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan, and here's what's happening in the world today. The last active photovoltaic solar farms have been decommissioned in Nevada and Utah. Solar power generation, once seen as the future of clean energy in America, has suffered significant setbacks in today's more extreme climate. The layer of dust suspended in our atmosphere, a result of the Himalayan wars, has limited the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. More importantly, the increasing regularity of hurricanes and sandstorms caused frequent and costly damage to most solar farms. Unsurprisingly, wind power has fared just as poorly. The number of active turbines has plummeted by 63% over the last 15 years alone. It appears Q2 will remain the uncontested leader in the energy sector for the foreseeable future. In mainland Europe and the Mediterranean, the humanitarian crisis has grown worse. According to the latest report, as much as 20% of the continent is no longer suitable for human habitation. Temperatures in Sicily, Malta, and the Cyclades have reached as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Air pollution in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania now exceeds the continent's average by more than 2,000%. However, heads of state in France, England, and Germany have issued a joint statement in which they preclude the option of government intervention. Their statement reads, quote, "Interference by government authority is interference in the free market. The disruption of natural market mechanisms only serves to hinder the optimal path for solutions to current problems." End quote. In other news, China has become the first country in the world to formally ban the use of human-controlled road vehicles. From now on, Chinese citizens can use only autonomous vehicles approved by government regulators. State-validated self-driving vehicles will be limited to pre-authorized routes, such as a person's commute to and from work. The Chinese government has given citizens a week to report all manually operated vehicles still in use, and to submit all bicycles for installation with state-issued GPS tracers. Thank you for watching N54 News. Join us again next time.
Good evening, Night City. My first guest tonight is the president of the Church of Eliyahu the Last Emancipator and bane of Arasaka's PR department, one Reverend Culver.
Praise be to thee, our Father in heaven.
And our second guest is Karina Lee, host of the Chip-In program, which promotes the use of cybernetic implants. How's life treating you, beautiful?
Can't complain, Ziggy. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'd like us to talk about the most exclusive and highly sought-after implant on the market today, Arasaka Corp's Relic. But maybe we ought to make sure our fair audience is up to speed. Karina, what is Relic exactly? In a word, if you could.
In one word, I'd say immortality.
Immortality? Really?
That's right. Relic allows you to transfer the consciousness from a dying person, finding a new home for their soul on a transferable chip. This person, they'll never leave your side, a companion forever with you in your own consciousness. Just imagine if...
Child, think for a moment about what you're saying. This relic is an abomination that feeds on human misery. It is an unnatural likeness, a golden calf born by false prophets. What's more, this technology is just another tool of coercion and corruption. Only the wealthy and powerful elite will have access, and they will pay any price in exchange for a chance at this so-called immortality. Arasaka speaks of preserving the soul, but they can promise nothing more than a heartless, mindless algorithm speaking with the voice of the departed.
Well, that is true that Arasaka Corp has specifically limited access to the relic in order to...
Your promise is a lie, an evil lie, motivated by greed and lust for power that...
Now that is rich!
Hey, excuse me?
False promises, greed, a lust for power. Why, sounds an awful lot like a church to me.
What? How dare you?
Do you not promise a life after death? Do you not charge funeral fees to a family in mourning? Maybe the Reverend is just afraid of some healthy competition, huh?
Competition? You believe everything in this world can be counted, measured, rationalized.
And wouldn't we be right? We can construct artificial brains, create new consciousness.
But I ask you why? What does that give us? Are we as a people on this earth any happier for it? You claim that this relic gives eternal life, but all I see is an eternity of suffering. Rather than say goodbye, We haunt ourselves with their voices, their presence. But
what do you folks
down
think? Who holds the truth?
Hearts,
Is it Ms. Lee or maybe Reverend Culver? That is up to you. Send Culver or Lee to 7892 to cast your vote and enter your name for a chance to win tickets to this year's playoffs. Until next time, Night City. Toodles.
Hi, how is everybody? Got some news with some spice. Lizzie Wizzy has just released her first BD. Yes, that Lizzie Wizzy. It's called Fracture Enough, and in it, she lays bare her heartbreaking split with Liam Northam. At first, Lizzie and Northam looked like the perfect pair, but then their little slice of heaven started to grow mold. Fracture Enough is a tumultuous journey through the superstar's sadness, disappointment, pain, and then the ecstasy when she exacts her revenge. When you feel Northam's body fall limp in your hands, with his hot blood streaking down your chrome skin, I mean, wow, preem catharsis. Fracture Enough is a brain dance masterpiece and proof that Lizzie Wizzy's genius extends far, far beyond her music. I cannot recommend it enough. Fracture Enough by the one and only Lizzie Wizzy is available on feeders now. Check it out.
It's been over 50 years since the city was rocked by the nuking of the Arasaka Towers, but we still don't really know what happened there. Or do we? We're going to be separating the lies from the truth, or at least giving it a damn good try. If you listen to the street, as you should, they said old Johnny Silverhand finally took his final revenge on Arasaka. He got together with some of his edge-runner compatriots and gave Saburo a middle finger so bright it could be seen all the way back to Japan. And where did he get the bomb? You can't exactly buy a pocket nuke at the local gun store, even in Night City. But the people who back this story say he picked it up from the Nomads, who in turn stole it from Militech. Well, we know dear old Johnny led the attack, and I'm pretty sure he saw his revenge. Lord knows he had enough reason to want revenge on Arasaka, but the truth is he didn't come up with a plan and he didn't bring in the nuke. The rest? Well, Johnny, if you're out there, why don't you tell us? So people, it's been over 50 years since this city was rocked by the nuking of the Arasaka Towers. But we still don't really know what happened there. Or do we? So what's the truth? All these stories we've discussed, these theories, they hold some truth. But as always, the real story is a lot more complicated. Here's the facts I've been able to dig up. Well, here's my theory. At that point in the war, one of Militech's core advantages was that they held net superiority, and they were about to lose that lead. Militech hired a team of disposable mercs. Some of them, like Johnny, had axes to grind against Arasaka, and were perfectly happy to take the job despite any risks. Militech also supplied the nuke. But the one thing all these versions of the truth leave out is the why. The Night City HQ of Arasaka was home to their net weapons division, and they had developed a new version of the infamous Soul Killer program. Something like that would have turned the tables against Militech and their allies overnight, so Militech needed to make sure it was offline. Why use mercs? Well, the fact is, even today, 50 years later, hardly anyone can agree on what happened that night. When corps get their hands caught in a cookie jar, it's good to have someone else to blame. And any mercs in the audience should be thinking about that before they accept that next corpo contract.
Hey, I'm Josh Kevorkian, and as always, your business is my business. We'll kick off the day with a broad scan of the market. Kiroshi climbs 2, Quadra dips by 1, New American Auto Works revs up by 1.5. But the day's big head turner? Orbital Air rocketing by 10 points. Don't touch that volume. You heard right. 10 points. But why? How? Coming off a disappointing year, no new announcements, The release of longtime CEO Leslie Wawuda? Who could justify even an any of investment into the stagnant aerospace giant? And yet, don't forget, folks, many huge accounts out there are managed by AIs. You blink an eye and they've already bought and sold shares twice over in billion euro-dollar deals. The problem is we don't always know what drives their decisions. And frankly, the owners of the funds they manage couldn't care less, so long as they see those profits ticking up. But, my dear viewers, I say we dig deeper. How could orbital air grow so drastically, so quickly? My friends, I see only one logical explanation. Those AIs expect a big boost in demand for orbital flights in the very near future. But why? World war? Environmental catastrophe? Perhaps the rise of the machines? That we may never know. Whatever conclusion the AIs have deduced from their data crunch, they seem intent on keeping it to themselves. Regardless of our fates, the time to buy is now. After all, we may need the windfall to buy our tickets to the moon once the world finally goes to hell.
What's shaking, Night City? Your man Stan here. Anyone else have that grandpa who go on and on about horses? Half my childhood I dreamed of galloping around the Badlands. Now Biotechnica might just make a cowpoke of me yet as they prepare a prototype for their Robo Bronco. I crack a lousy joke about the horsepower it must be packing, but honestly, I'm too giddy to think straight.
My name is Arif Iqbal. Thank you for joining us on WNS News. We begin today with a look at the local news. Arasaka Corp has signed a cooperation agreement with Night City University. Professors and students now have the option to acquire an Arasaka Ozukumi SX cognitive implant on loan at a 20% discounted rate. Sources tell us installation of the implant will become a requirement for all faculty and enrolled students before long. In a troubling turn, 12 fatalities have been reported in Vista del Rey. City coroners have confirmed botulism as the cause of death. It appears the common thread between all the victims is the same type of canned meat. The NCPD urges everyone to purchase meat only from approved culinary labs. Meat butchered from natural sources is likely to contain harmful toxins and pathogens. After botulism, the next bug Night City will catch is Lizzie Wizzy Fever, as she announces her upcoming concert series. The world-renowned singer and artist is due to visit Night City soon. Tickets will only be available for purchase to those with a credit rating above 700. For all of Lizzie Wizzy's other fans, the concert will be available to view through domestic feeder units. And that's your latest, Night City. Until next time. Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, we turn our eyes towards Asia. The summit between China and India has ended with the signing of a new trade agreement. Under the agreement, the tariffs for iridium, dysprosium, and lanthanum, rare metals necessary for the construction of the Chi-Yu-2 orbital station, have been lifted. The signatories have also agreed to the free movement of organic persons and biopodders between the two countries. This is the latest step in the two nations' push for greater economic integration, and the benefits such cooperation brings. This flies in stark contrast to the NUSA's protectionism and trade war policies under President Myers. In science news, Biotechnica researchers have announced another breakthrough in genetics: the restoration of 3 previously extinct animal species: the North American beaver, the swift fox, and the eastern cottontail. Though back from the dead, these species will not be reintroduced to their natural habitats for fear of an increased risk of zoonotic disease, similar to the great bird flu of 2061 and the rat fever of 2072. For the time being, the animals will only be grown on special order. The people of Turkey are bracing themselves for a radioactive sandstorm yet again this year. Meteorologists expect southern winds to carry several dozen tons of irradiated dust from the former states of Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The fallout from these territories, devastated during the so-called suicide war, remain the primary source of radiation that falls onto Europe and the eastern Mediterranean. After the break, we take a closer look at the new sneakers from Avante that hit Night City shelves tomorrow.